David BEAL. I came in touch with the ICA on a full-time basis in 1976 and spent some time in a house we had in San Antonio where I worked for the Alamo Area Council of Governments and shared that money with the expenses of maintaining our community in San Antonio. Then coming to Chicago, I went through the training of academy and was sent from here to the Human Development Project in Japan, where we were on a mountain in Hokkaido. And while I was there, I remember some of the volunteer translators that met us were some of the more open your eyes to things you hadn't thought about. I remember one woman explaining to me that in her situation, her grandparents were brought together in the traditional manner of arranged marriage. That after the Second World War, her parents were first generation of Japanese to experiment with love marriage, which is something I share with my fellow Americans because they hadn't stopped and thought that that traditional marriage is not love marriage. They kind of assume that's all they've heard about, so it doesn't shock them necessarily, but it, for me, says most people I know that have a successful marriage, many of them are in their second partnership because, you know, at the age we choose a partner is probably a bad time of our life to be making such an important decision. Anyway, that was the image I got because the translator is explaining to me that her grandparents were still together and quite solid while her parents at that time were divorced. But on the mountain, this community had a coal mining purpose in economics, that it was once Japan started trading with China, it was less expensive to bring coal in from China than to operate this coal mine at the top of the mountain we were on. So it was just helping the community figure out what resources do we have and how can we use them in a useful way that will maintain our community. What I've learned over the years is in the 1990s, the people at the government level decided they wanted to build up in that mountain a reservoir for holding water for the capital city just down the mountain. So they cleared out the community, which is always very hard on people like the Japanese because these people spend a lot of their time nurturing relationships with other Japanese, and so to scatter the community would have been emotionally difficult. When you learn that after they removed everybody, the government changed its mind and didn't build the water reserve. They didn't build the dam that had occasioned moving the village elsewhere. But this was just, you know, we're all swamped by history as we're part of a nation, and what good we did, I think, was trying to honor the local elders and motivate them to have a vision for their future and to take their traditional leadership skills and use that to motivate the community to do things that would invite the other parts of Hokkaido, come up and see what a beautiful place this is. And it was, to me, a wonderful area of the world. You're in a forest, and in the season of the fall was the most exciting. I came from a part of Texas where the fall leaves are dull. Everything looks like the Corps cadets at A&M, kind of a off color brown, whereas in the mountains of Hokkaido you get these very bright colored leaves. I thought just touring those forests might be more of a joy for the people of Japan, the way they're so contemplative, but can't build an economy on that little bit of time of the year, so that wasn't a solution. These were just some of the things struck me about being up there on the mountain. What I enjoyed myself was early in the morning when my colleagues Pam and I would go out to one of the roads in the community about the time of the day when the children are going to school. And they would see us Europeans and practice their English, and we would practice our Japanese, greeting each other, and it gave both of us a laugh. But this was part of what I enjoyed about being what the Japanese call gaijin. I remember one evening, how remarkable some Americans are. I was going to do conversation English in a small suburban neighborhood in Sapporo, and the lighting of the street put me in the dark. But I could see these two Europeans coming my way, and just by their dress, I told myself these two are elders from the Mormon church. And as they approached me, thinking I'm Japanese because I'm covered with a hood, and I'm in the dark of the street light behind me, they're greeting me in Japanese. As they got just abreast to me, I gave them a Texas Aggie howdy. And you could hear their pace of steps in the snow pause as these two Americans tried to figure out what just happened. That's just not the way Japanese people act. But that was one of my favorite moments in the time I spent on the mountain or going into the city. I'm not an English teacher, but because I have the American accent, people who study English quite seriously found it helpful for them just to get used to listening to somebody from America so they could take their various degrees of study and be better suited to listen to other people, not only Americans using English, but what you learned is people from other countries, when they go to Japan, they find that English is more of a universal language and they have learned it. So it was, for paying for our presence, being from an English-speaking country was, to me, a very fortunate situation. These are some of my memories from being in Hokkaido, very cold in the winter. We have the phenomenon over here of, in the winter, going over the water, the cold weather picks up moisture from the Pacific Ocean, and when they get to the mountain, it turns to snow. So we were living in a situation where the snow would build up through the winter and normally push through the windows if you didn't prepare yourself. So we were taught to put plastic over the window areas and then veneer boards flat so that all the windows are covered in the winter, just to keep the snow from pushing through into our residence.